You never forget the first time a human tells you, "Don't worry about it." It's not a reassurance. It's a countdown. My name is Ikar Enthvel, third-tier conflict resolution analyst assigned to the Interstellar Trade Compact's Bureau of Difficult Species. A long title, I know. It means I get called in when someone's about to punch someone else across 14 light-years of diplomatic space. When I was briefed on my latest assignment, liaison to Earth's representative on the Joint Terraforming Council, I laughed. I'd read the field notes. I'd seen the Grok incident footage. I even attended the compulsory seminar, Humans, How to Spot the Smile That Means Run. So I should have known better. I met him, or rather, her, on day 1 of terraforming Site 117, orbiting Gliese 581G. The site was a freshly terraformed crescent moon, all glinting atmosphere generators and carbon-scrubbing towers, the height of my childhood's tallest dreams. Humanity had been assigned to calibrate biosphere integration with our atmospheric nanoweb. It was delicate, scientific, critical. And they sent Lana Park. Human, obviously. Approximately 1.6 meters tall. Black hair bound tight behind her head, a streak of gold at the temple that she later explained was for the vibes. She wore the regulation compact exosuit in earth olive green, but had affixed a tiny pin to the chest, a grinning, cartoonish mushroom with the word boom beneath it. I asked what it meant. She smiled. Inside joke. You'll get it. I never did. Not fully. The first 72 hours were smooth. Lana nodded at protocols, asked the right questions, recorded every atmospheric variance with methodical ease. I dared to relax. Then came the dispute with the Neimarians. The Neimarians, an aquatic silicon-based race with anxiety-inducing mucosal rituals, controlled the eastern hemisphere of the moon's terraforming grid. Their representative, a tendril-heavy diplomat named Vithkov, approached us on the 4th cycle, undulating with restrained dismay. There has been interference, he declared, voice modulated through his translator, orb-like static through soup. Your human's drone hive has entered our stratospheric buffer. 3 microturbines breached the condensation field. One of our young was startled. Lana blinked. You mean the fog baby? Vithkov trembled. He is not a fog baby. He is my offspring. Sorry, she said, all warmth and calm. We'll recalibrate the swarm vectors. Recompense must be negotiated, Vithkov insisted. That fog baby screamed for 8 minutes. It upset the thermal layers. I understand, Lana replied smoothly. We'll make it right. Then she said it. Don't worry about it. The translator didn't even flinch. The Nemerian rippled in what it must have assumed was a successful diplomatic exchange. I, however, began quietly updating the interspecies incident escalation form in my datapad. What followed was not immediate violence. That's not how humans operate. Instead, Lana invited Vithkov to observe the recalibration process. She walked him through every node, every algorithm. She even offered him coffee. He declined. I think the steam triggered an instinctual memory of predators. Then she asked. Do you want to see the diagnostic logs from your buffer field? Of course, he said. For comparative symmetry. She handed over a drive. 2 hours later, Vithkov returned, visibly distraught. Your records show we've been siphoning atmosphere density from your quadrant for 3 cycles. Lana just raised an eyebrow. Oh. Didn't notice. I must report this to the council, Vithkov stammered. Lana shrugged. Sure. But keep in mind, if we go public, we'll have to include the thermal overlays. You know, the ones showing structural instability in your coral matrix. That was not published data. It will be, she said, taking a sip from her thermos. Unless there's a more harmonious resolution. Silence. Moist silence. I believe, Vithkov said slowly, there is room for reinterpretation. Awesome, Lana said, and offered him a fist bump. He recoiled in confusion. She just smiled. Not the toothy one. The other one. The polite one. The smile that's not for happiness. The smile that's just, letting you know she's decided. Later that evening, I reviewed her revised drone swarm protocols. They hadn't changed. Not even a line of code. There was no recalibration. You never fixed the buffer breach, I told her. She nodded. Didn't need to. Just had to fix his need for it to be fixed. I didn't know what to say. So I defaulted to Bureau standard phrasing, that was diplomatically unconventional. She took another sip from her thermos. We're not diplomats, Icare. We're apex improvisers. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept reviewing the footage, the subtle inflections, the way she had turned an alien's aggression into self-correction with nothing but implication and a smile. And it was only the beginning. Because the next day, a cargo shuttle exploded in orbit. And someone blamed the humans. The cargo shuttle exploded at precisely 9:43 lunar mean time. No casualties, thankfully. The vessel had just completed unloading terraforming reagents, nothing volatile by cooperative standards. Still, when 3,000 tons of atmospheric ballast burst into a cascading ring of frozen particulates, people noticed. By 10:17, half the delegation was whispering about sabotage. By 11:02, someone pointed a translucent pseudopod toward Earth's envoy. We've reviewed our protocols, Lana said, standing in the central chamber of terraforming Site 117. Our drones were nowhere near the shuttle. Our telemetry is clean. It wasn't a courtroom. But the layout made it feel like one. A dozen species had gathered around the central spire, observers, representatives, administrators. Hovering feeds looped the explosion from every angle, all fuzzy with distortion but dramatic enough to spark speculation. Intent is irrelevant, said Orthilden of the Hishari Collective, its vocal sacs billowing like sails. Your species brings unpredictability. That alone is destabilizing. Lana didn't flinch. Unpredictability is how we survive. That's not a flaw, it's a resource. There was a pause. Not the diplomatic kind. The kind that felt like breath being held across multiple atmospheres. I stood behind her, all four arms clasped tight to my chest. Watching. Calculating. Vithkov of the Nymerians shifted his weight in his mobile moisture cradle. We demand a formal review. The Council should determine if human involvement in this project is. Lana raised her hand. Slowly. Calmly. The motion wasn't aggressive. It was deliberate. And somehow, everyone stopped talking. She turned slightly, gaze steady. Let's run the scenario, she said, voice clear and even. You think we caused this? Why? For what? To destabilize a project we're part of? Humans do not operate by the same motivations as other species, Orthilden muttered. Exactly, Lana replied. We don't. Which is why assuming you know what we'll do is the surest way to get surprised. I felt it then. The shift. Not in posture, not in volume. In intent. See, she continued, if humans had done something, you wouldn't be in this room speculating about it. You'd be reading about how you already approved the replacement budget and agreed it was your idea. Vithkov's tendrils twitched uneasily. Are you admitting manipulation? I'm describing strategy, Lana said. Which is what this project needs more of, not less. There was another pause. Then a voice from the upper gallery spoke. It belonged to Director Kellenar, representative of the Observers Guild, a species of neural-linked beings who rarely intervened directly. When they did, every syllable carried weight. We have analyzed the explosion, Kellenar said. The cause was mechanical fatigue in a secondary coolant junction. Poor design. No external tampering detected. Silence, again. But a different kind now. Heavier. I trust this resolves the matter? Lana asked, not smug, not cold. Just, efficient. The gathered species slowly returned to their designated levels. Some murmured apologies. Most did not. But the shift was undeniable. Later that evening, I found Lana in the engineering annex, crouched beside a fusion relay she wasn't authorized to be near. Maintenance, she said before I could speak. Always good to know how things tick. You handled that inquiry efficiently, I said. Truth helps, she replied, tightening a bolt with a magnetic spanner. So does knowing when to let silence do the heavy lifting. I hesitated. You said something today that stayed with me. She glanced up, eyebrow raised. You said if humans had done it, no one would know. That they'd think it was their idea. Lana stood, brushing dust off her knees. Do you want the real reason we're dangerous, Icare? I nodded, even though part of me wasn't sure I did. It's not the tech. It's not the ships. It's not even the adaptability. She took a sip from her thermos. It's that we're storytellers. We rewrite reality until it agrees with us. Until you agree with us. That sounds like manipulation. That's diplomacy, she said. Except we learned it from predators, not philosophers. We both turned at the sound of bootsteps. A courier approached, Mevian species, all bone ridges and shifting eye plates. Message for the human delegate, they said. Lana opened it, scanned the contents, and let out a breath between her teeth. Of course. What is it? I asked. We've been invited to the Central Assembly. That's rare. Mandatory, she corrected. Apparently, we're being nominated to lead the Mars-Mer initiative. But that's an inner-ring project, I said. Humans aren't supposed to have that level of clearance. Lana smiled. Not the charming one. Not the diplomatic one. The quiet one. The one that made it feel like a black hole was opening behind her teeth. We do now, she said. And for the first time since I'd met her, I realized something terrifying. We weren't teaching humans how to join the galaxy. They were teaching us how to play a whole new game. The Central Assembly was held in a space so vast that sound didn't echo, it just vanished. The chamber was engineered by the Exatel architects of the Ring Worlds, designed to dampen resonance across 93 biological variants. It was as close as the galaxy came to silence. Lana Park didn't seem fazed. She walked across the obsidian floor like it was a conference room on Earth. Her olive-green exosuit shimmered under the assembly lights, the cartoon mushroom still proudly pinned to her chest. Delegates tracked her entrance through whisper thought, data beam, scent filament, and silent chemical pulse. The room held 46 species, and she made eye contact with none of them. Only Icare Enthvel followed 2 steps behind, arms clasped in the formal posture of second-rank diplomatic support. As we passed beneath the pulsating ring of the Judgment Circle, a hovering halo of biocrystalline light, I felt something strange. Not fear. Not pride. Something subtler. A pressure in the air, like the room itself had decided to hold its breath. She stopped at the center and looked up, addressing the floating council. Representative Park of Earth, you are called to respond, intoned the speaker, a being of static and lattice known as Vox 88. The initiative you've been nominated for carries access to restricted nanoscape protocols and autonomous biosphere control networks. These systems were previously limited to senior members of the cooperative. The vote is not yet cast. I understand, Lana said. Some delegates are concerned your species is premature. A pause. Lana smiled. We've been called worse. Laughter wasn't common in the assembly, but I saw at least 3 species ripple in confusion that could have been amusement. The question, Vox 88 continued, is whether your influence has risen from merit, or manipulation. That word. Manipulation. It hung in the air like unmapped radiation. Lana's expression didn't change. But I saw her shoulders shift just a fraction, human posture code for time to focus. I'm not here to deny influence, she said. I'm here to explain its origin. I watched the diplomats lean in, each in their own fashion, tense antennae, folding fronds, blinking chromatophores. When humanity arrived, Lana continued, we were called impulsive. Volatile. Too young. Too emotional. I flinched internally. This was not how most species began formal presentations. But emotion isn't our weakness, she said. It's our interface. She took a small step forward, as if anchoring herself. Where some species evolved to avoid discomfort, we adapted to live inside it. Where others refined consensus, we refined conflict resolution. Not because we wanted to. Because we had to. One of the KRRYTH, a spined ambassador from the dust worlds, shifted uncomfortably. You think we manipulate? Lana asked. No. We empathize. Deeply. And that empathy lets us predict. A low harmonic ripple moved through the delegates, surprise, suspicion, maybe both. Our strength isn't control. It's reaction. Calculated, swift, and adaptive. And the vote? Vox 88 said. Why should the Assembly trust Earth with protocols reserved for civilizations thousands of cycles older? Lana turned slowly, looking at each delegation in turn. Because every species here has protocols for peace. But only one of us learned peace on a world that never gave it. Silence followed. Real silence. I scanned the room. No feedback pulses, no exhalations. Even the airborne SLYPHYR hadn't moved. Her words didn't trigger defiance, they triggered reflection. The pause was broken by a soft tone, Vox 88's decision sequence completing. Earth, it said, is granted provisional leadership of the Mars-Mer initiative. Oversight to be reviewed in 3 cycles. The vote passes. 42 in favor. 3 abstain. 1 recused. Lana nodded once, formally. The assembly dissolved into quiet conversation and departing translators. I noticed how few of them looked at her directly. Afterward, in the transit bay, I couldn't hold it in any longer. You challenged the entire assembly, I said. Do you know how close that was to breach of decorum? Yes, she replied. You expected to win? I expected them to feel uncertain. That's usually enough. And if it hadn't worked? Lana opened her thermos, took a long sip, and smiled faintly. Then we'd try something else. She didn't say lose. She didn't say fall back. Just something else. And in that moment, I understood the true strategy, not overwhelming force, not flawless logic. Just a species that refused to stop moving until the room changed shape around them. That evening, while reviewing reports, I added a new entry to the Bureau's internal memo. Directive update: when a human says they understand, do not assume agreement. They are preparing their next move. You'd think that after a species is granted oversight of a multi-planet initiative, they'd slow down. Take a victory lap. Breathe. Humans don't breathe, they draft new objectives. By the end of the 3rd cycle, Lana had rewritten 17% of the Mars-Mer initiative's operational framework. Not illegally. Not even unethically. Just, thoroughly. She used the same rules everyone else did, just faster. Smarter. I watched it unfold from my new position, Assistant Liaison to Human Affairs, a title that meant, try to keep up. Her first major move was the heat dome redesign on Mer's southern hemisphere. The native biome, mostly composed of thick-barked flora and slow-moving glider mammals, had long resisted cooperative cultivation strategies. It was considered incompatible, which usually meant too much effort. Lana disagreed. "We're not here to overwrite ecosystems," she told the implementation board. "We're here to negotiate with them." The board stared, trying to translate the concept. Negotiate, with plants? Evolution is communication over time, she continued. These organisms aren't obstacles. They're the original tenants. We don't bulldoze tenants. We talk leases. Even the planetary ecologists needed a moment to process that. She brought in 3 human xenobotanists and 1 soil psychologist. Yes, that's a real title, and within 3 standard days, they developed a dynamic light diffusion canopy that allowed cooperative growth between native trees and terraforming moss clusters. No chemicals. No force. Just pattern recognition and environmental judo. The system worked so well that 5 other worlds requested blueprints. "You could have let that roll out slowly," I told her later, over a working dinner, Earth-style flatbread and nutrient cubes. She smirked, biting into a triangle. Slow is how people stay in charge without improving anything. The next morning, she was invited to the cooperative ethics review. Normally, that would be cause for alarm. But humans, as I was learning, didn't treat inquiries as threats. They treated them as chances to explain themselves. The hearing took place aboard the platform ship Symmetry in Motion, a mobile arbitration vessel orbiting the neutral world of Relia. Its walls were made of compressed harmonics, literal sound crystallized into structure. You could feel the intentions of the ship through your feet. The ethics chair was a delicate creature of silk threads and charged memory nodes. It spoke in musical chords translated into visual glyphs. Lana, of course, read the glyphs before they finished animating. "You've been accused of aggressive expansion," the chair's statement read. "I've encouraged collaborative innovation," Lana replied. "Your methods cause disruption. Because they cause results." That caused an unintentional ripple across the tribunal. Results can be destabilizing. "Stability without progress is stagnation," Lana countered. "Is that ethical?" The chair paused. It wasn't often a species threw the philosophy back at the mid-sentence. "We seek to harmonize the will of all parties," the chair said. "I seek the same," Lana said, and smiled. "I just work in different tempos." Later, as the ship's walls recalibrated, I asked her what that had meant. She shrugged. "They're playing chamber music. I brought drums." The ethics review concluded with a rare note: no violation. Continue observation. In diplomatic terms, that was the equivalent of a standing ovation. But not everyone was applauding. 3 days later, the Kral trade bloc filed a formal challenge to Earth's recent energy tech patents, claiming infringement on latent atmospheric conversion techniques, methods that hadn't been used in 900 cycles but, crucially, had been registered. The Kral are not known for flexibility. Their government is a hierarchy of legal precedents layered like fossil strata. If something was decided once, it remains decided forever. Their main cultural export is paperwork. Lana didn't panic. She filed a counterclaim. Her legal team, 4 humans and 1 ex-Kral dissident named Jaitan, submitted a response that not only invalidated the Kral's claim but raised 12 retroactive licensing errors across other block systems. The result? The Kral withdrew. Not publicly. Not all at once. Just, quietly. One office at a time. No one wanted to admit defeat. So they acted like they'd meant to lose. When I asked Lana how she'd pulled it off, she tapped the side of her head. "Precedent," she said. "The longer a system lasts, the easier it is to trip on its own shoelaces." "You're not afraid of being unpopular?" I asked. "I'm not here to be liked," she said. "I'm here to be useful." By the 8th cycle, other species had stopped trying to outmaneuver the humans. They started trying to understand them. Lana's office aboard the Orbital Hub Pinnacle Array became an unofficial nerve center for half the cooperative's reform initiatives. Delegates from 11 worlds requested consultations. Some brought policy drafts. Others brought questions. A few brought food. The Maraca delegate, all silky angles and photosensitive tendrils, arrived with a tray of pollen cakes and a spreadsheet titled How to Rethink Everything Without Being Eaten Alive by Politics. Lana offered them tea and revised their approach in 27 minutes. She never asked for credit. Never claimed leadership. She just helped. That was the trick, really. Humans weren't clawing for power. They were making themselves indispensable. And indispensability, as every strategist knows, is a much harder thing to remove than authority. Which made it all the more strange when the rumors started. They began as background pulses on trade channels, encrypted, ambiguous. Then came the data fragments, unusual energy readings near the helix fringe. Private research installations going dark. Anonymous reports of unauthorized tech transfers. But it wasn't until a Pran courier ship returned from the Rim territories broadcasting static and heat maps that anyone said it aloud. Black systems. Dead zones beyond cooperative reach. Places where ships vanished and laws stopped applying. The kind of places where someone, or something, was planning in silence. Could be pirates, Lana said, scrolling through decrypted reports with one hand while balancing a stylus between her fingers. You don't believe that, I said. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and tilted the holomap toward me. It showed a web of subtle disruptions, communication pings that vanished mid-burst. Supply chains rerouted without reason. Research stations reporting minor anomalies, then silence. They're not attacking, she murmured. They're watching. Why? To learn how we move. Where we pay attention. And where we don't. The map zoomed out, revealing a larger picture, not random data points, but a pattern. A method. I felt a chill ripple through my chest plates. You think they're planning something? I think, she said slowly, they're preparing to be noticed. And once they are. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The next day, Lana requested a classified audience with the High Observer Council. That alone was enough to start diplomatic whisper chains. The council hadn't been summoned in person since the Radiant Accord crisis, an event that still made the atmospheric fungi on Slar V excrete stress pollen whenever it was mentioned. She wore the same suit. Didn't even change the pin. The chamber was smaller than most expected, an intentional choice by the observers to emphasize intimacy over grandeur. A single ring of elevated seats encircled the speaker platform. Light came from nowhere and everywhere. I stood at the periphery, translating her biometric output in real time for species who couldn't interpret human micro-expressions. Which was, frankly, all of them. Lana stood at the center of the ring, arms relaxed at her sides. There's something moving on the edges of the map, she began. Something old. Or new in the way that only forgotten things can be. The room listened. No interruptions. No clarifying pulses. This isn't a call for panic, she continued. It's a call for pattern recognition. We're being studied. And we need to decide, collectively, what story they'll find when they look. And what story would you suggest? Asked one of the senior observers, a being whose presence registered more as a change in air pressure than a visible shape. Lana paused. Then, softly, that we're paying attention. Silence, again. But this time it felt like readiness. Like the moment a seed realizes it's been planted. For 3 standard days, nothing happened. No sightings. No transmissions. No follow-ups from the council. But if you've worked with humans long enough, you learn, nothing happening is never nothing. It's the inhale before action. Lana Park didn't wait. She convened an informal coalition, which, in practice, meant 12 species, 5 independent observers, and 1 freelance analyst who specialized in catastrophic trend modeling. The group had no authority, no official sanction. Just a shared instinct that something on the edge of the map was watching back. "We need a pattern," Lana said during their first session. "Not just data. Narrative logic. Something you can't see on graphs." That's when I realized her real strength wasn't prediction. It was reframing. Where most species looked for rules, she looked for storylines. Not because they were prettier. Because they were easier to break. The coalition met in a data amphitheater aboard the cooperative outpost Tranquility Lens. The space curved inward like a shell, lined with tiered viewing decks and shimmering information streams. Most used it for strategic games or historical reenactments. Lana used it for analysis theater. The screen showed the dead zones, dim, motionless territories where even automated probes lost orientation. But as she layered the visual feeds, something emerged. The pattern wasn't in the signal. It was in the silence. A rhythm. A timing. A gradual push inward, like a tide. Not fast. Not aggressive. But intentional. "They're expanding their silence," said the VETH delegate, a being of 6-legged logic and perfect auditory memory. "Like erasing sentences from a book. Or building a border," Lana said. The Maraca Pollensmith leaned forward. "A border around what?" Lana didn't answer. She just zoomed the projection out. The silence formed a spiral. It wasn't random. It was shaped. That's when the alarms went off. Red pulses danced across the amphitheater's ceiling. Not danger, diplomatic urgency. A transmission from a civilian research vessel near the helix fringe. Visual only. Short. Fragmented. But clear enough. The feed showed a structure. Floating in open space. No propulsion. No visible entry points. Dozens of kilometers wide, dark and seamless, its surface reacting to light like oil over black stone. And something inside the feed, barely audible, was humming. Not static. Not malfunction. A tone. Deliberate. Repeating. A voice, maybe. Saying something no one could translate. The feed ended abruptly. Back in the amphitheater, no one spoke. Then Lana turned to me. "Call in Thompson," she said. I blinked. "Ambassador Thompson?" Lana nodded. "The one who started this entire galactic trust exercise with a paperweight and a smile. But he's retired." "He's human," she said. "Which means he probably got bored and started watching the stars again." "You think this is connected?" "I think we need someone who understands how to talk without words," she said. "And how to make silence, listen back." Leonard Thompson arrived without fanfare. No diplomatic escort. No customized transport. Just a civilian shuttle, an unregistered docking code, and a datapad that still had crumbs from whatever humans called a power bar. He looked older. Not fragile, just distilled. Like time had boiled away the excess, leaving only the essential parts: sharp eyes, dry wit, and a posture that said, "I've already read your report and I'm not impressed." "Thompson," Lana said, greeting him on the observation deck of Tranquility Lens. "I appreciate the discretion." "I figured showing up in a cape would be overkill," he replied, glancing out the window. The spiral was visible now. Even to the naked eye. Not in form, but in absence. Stars dimmed in an elegant arc, like something was slowly painting space black. "So," he said after a pause. "They're humming now." "You heard it?" "I felt it," he said. "Like a memory I hadn't had yet." Lana didn't smile. We think it's a pre-contact protocol. That's optimistic. She turned to him. You once said humans are dangerous because we wait longer than anyone else to get angry. Thompson nodded slowly. We also wait longer to get curious. And when we finally do, we don't stop, Lana finished. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the dark pattern grow across the stars. Then Thompson pulled a small device from his coat. Old Earth radio receiver, he explained. Modified. No filters. Just static and stubbornness. Lana raised an eyebrow. You think they're using an ancient wavelength? I think they're using every wavelength. But humans learn to hear through noise. Maybe that's what they're testing. The next day, they set up the listening array. Nothing grand. Just a small dome, a few repurposed sensors, and Thompson sitting cross-legged in front of an analog receiver while a dozen species tried to pretend they weren't watching a human play with what looked like salvage from a museum. It's not the signal, he muttered. It's the gaps. The breath between the sounds. Hours passed. Then a tone. Just once. Then again. Then silence. Then another tone. Different. Shorter. Followed by 2 pulses of static and what could only be described as texture. Thompson's hand hovered over the dial. He didn't smile. But I swear, he vibrated with recognition. They're not broadcasting a message, he said. They're broadcasting a question. Lana stepped forward. What kind? He turned toward her slowly. The kind you ask before deciding if something is alive. The tones repeated for 4 cycles. Not messages. Not music. Just questions. Some species theorized it was a test. Others believed it was a countdown. Lana Park called it a conversation starter. We don't need to understand the language, she told the coalition. We need to understand the intention. Leonard Thompson agreed, though in fewer words. They're checking for rhythm, he said, adjusting the analog receiver. Looking for something with a heartbeat. So the humans answered. They didn't broadcast a greeting or a technical schematic. They sent a sound. One that humans had carried with them since they first left Earth. A breath. Just that. Inhale. Exhale. Recorded in a single quiet room on the Pacific coast, no filters, no enhancements. Lana said it was symbolic. We're alive, she explained. But also, we're aware of being alive. That's a distinction. The reply came hours later. Not a tone. A shift. The spiral deepened. Stars vanished faster. The boundary expanded. And at its center, something blinked. Not light. Not signal. A momentary absence inside the absence. Like whatever was there, had noticed us. The cooperative went into emergency session. Some called for defenses. Others for retreat. A few suggested silence. Lana listened to them all, arms crossed, the mushroom pin glinting under the chamber lights. Finally, she spoke. I understand the fear, she said. But consider this, they didn't come to us. They didn't attack. They invited observation. To what end? Someone asked. To see what kind of species we are, she said. Because the spiral isn't hiding. It's watching. There was murmuring across the chamber. Subsonic waves. Thermal ripples. Data flashes. You propose contact? Asked a cold-voiced delegate from the polar world of Eresk. I propose honesty, Lana replied. Let's show them who we are, before they finish deciding. What if they've already decided? Lana looked up at the ceiling, where a live feed of the spiral flickered in near real time. She took a breath, one that mirrored the recording they had sent. Then they're giving us a chance to prove them wrong. That evening, Leonard Thompson initiated the next step. He didn't ask permission. He walked alone into the communications core, tuned the receiver, and said a single sentence in a language no one else recognized. Earth English, pre-standardization, soft and slow. If you're listening, so are we. He didn't expect a response. But he got one. The spiral pulsed. And then, for the first time, it spoke. Not in words. Not in sound. But in shape. On every screen, in every form of translation, every species saw the same thing. A spiral resolving inward into a single point. A dot. Then another. Then another. Then 12. And beneath it, a single universal symbol. An invitation. A coordinate. And a question. Will you come see? The invitation hung in every corner of the cooperative. A coordinate. 12 points. A spiral into stillness. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It was a question. And questions, humans believed, deserved answers. The debate lasted 6 standard hours. Most species wavered. Some urged retreat. Others suggested unmanned probes, long-range scans, delay wrapped in analysis. Lana Park stood only once, spoke only once. We didn't come to the stars to wait for permission, she said. We came to meet whatever was out here, eyes open. That was enough. Within a day, a delegation was formed. 5 ships. 12 species. And 1 human vessel at the center, Prosperity 2. Leonard Thompson took the helm, unofficially. Not a captain, he said. Just, curious. Before departure, I met Lana on the upper deck. We stood in silence, watching the ships align like instruments before a performance. You're not going? I asked her. She shook her head. It's not my role this time. You led us here. I cleared the path, she said. Now someone has to walk it. A quiet fell between us. I've read the reports, I said. Those coordinates lead nowhere. No star. No station. Just deep space. Then that's exactly where we belong, she said. Out where meaning hasn't been assigned yet. Prosperity 2 launched first. No weapons. No shields raised. Just a ship, a crew, and a question. The rest followed. As they crossed the boundary of the spiral, sensors stopped reporting in conventional terms. Light bent oddly. Time felt viscous. One ship described seeing echoes of its own thoughts in the calm stream. Another said it smelled something like memory. Then, silence. No distress. Just nothing. For 12 standard minutes, the galaxy held its breath. And then, return. Not sound. Not visuals. A feeling. Broadcasted from Prosperity 2 like a wave through vacuum. Every species heard it in their own way. The Zenari felt it as a warmth in their hive nodes. The Prans saw it flicker in crystal. The Aresk tasted it as sweetness in the air. Humans? They heard it as a voice. Familiar. Terrifying. Calm. And it said, "You are not alone in your reaching." We, too, began with questions. Welcome to the second conversation. That was it. No demands. No claims of superiority. No exchange of technology. Just an acknowledgement. And in the days that followed, something stranger still happened. Species began to speak differently. Not about borders. But about boundaries. Not about advantage. But about invitation. Trade agreements adapted. Research coalitions expanded. Even the Ethics Council began using a new phrase, emergent diplomacy, a concept seeded not by policy, but by curiosity. As for humanity, their reputation shifted again. No longer the volatile newcomers. No longer the dangerous improvisers. Now they were something else entirely. They were the ones who had answered. The ones who had gone to listen first. And when I submitted my final report to the Bureau of Difficult Species, I ended it with a phrase I never expected to write. Humanity's greatest threat to the galaxy is not their strength, nor their speed. It is that when the unknown arrives, they say yes. And somewhere beyond mapped stars, past old fears and new beginnings, a conversation began. And it has never stopped since. End of story. If you liked this sci-fi story, subscribe to the channel to not miss new stories.